So, Rick, thanks so much for joining us today. I know this is a little out of your comfort zone, but we really appreciate you getting in on it, and I think it'll be fun. So,
Yeah,
You guys make everything fun. This will be easy.
this is a fun group.
yeah, for sure. Do you just want to tell us a little bit about yourself really quick before we dive into things?
Yeah, sure. I've been in the Dynamics channel about 20 years now. Spent some time using the software. Been some ISVs in both sales roles and channel management roles, and I've spent some time in the VAR space as well. A little bit of time outside of Dynamics here and there, or at companies that worked in multiple ERP or CRM channels, but the vast majority has been in Dynamics, and yeah, it's a great channel, and been pretty fortunate to have a lot of folks that I've worked with that have been around the channel a long time, and so it makes it pretty special because it almost feels like a family. So yeah, that's me. I've spent some time playing soccer growing up and in college, and ended up with a couple degrees from UC. So I'm a Cincinnati guy and love all my Cincinnati sports teams, even though it's sometimes difficult. But love getting to travel around with all the conferences and local user groups, and really just being a part of the channel.
Do you root for a particular Kelsey? Because I know both went to
I was just
Cincinnati.
about to ask that. Beat me to it.
Yeah, they're pretty interesting guys. They're pretty out there, and they love Cincinnati, and they spend a lot of time coming back. They've actually invested in one of the local breweries here, and their garage beer. It's a
Nice.
pretty
Yeah.
popular brew, but
I'm guessing Jason, shirtless Jason, is their mascot of some sort, like a statue of shirtless Jason just standing there, with two garage beers in his hand.
I don't think Travis
Cracking
is
them
too far
open.
behind. I think he might be right there next to him.
That's
So
funny.
yeah, they're pretty similar, but
Hmm.
yeah, actually Cincinnati's got a lot of players in professional sports, NFL,
Yeah.
MLB, and pretty big high school sports scene here in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
So you
I had
probably
a good time
recognize most of
driving
them.
around Cincinnati. One of the times I was out for an Ellipse event, and if I'm flying, at least for me, and when I'm flying in, I would fly into Cincinnati almost every time. One time I think I flew into Dayton because it worked out, but mostly I would fly into Cincinnati and drive over, the hour or so up to Dayton.
Yeah,
And
it's
what I had,
interesting. It's actually the airport is in Kentucky, even
exactly,
though
yeah, it's across
uh,
the river.
it's called CVG because it used to be called the Covington Airport. So most people are like, why is it CVG? That doesn't make sense.
I
So
also wondered that, but never Googled it to figure out why. But I did wonder, why is it CVG? Because it should be something different.
yep,
I
fun
never
fact
even
for
thought to
the
question it. I was just
Yeah.
like, yep, that's CBG. Who cares? I'm flying there.
Yeah, it's three. Yeah, whatever. But I drove. I had like time on my trip back out. I had time before I had to go to the airport, and so I just literally drove around for like 2 hours around Cincinnati, just looking at different architecture's fun, like seeing the different housing types, the different areas. Kind of hilly. You're not expecting it to be, and
yes,
murals in the town. It was just fun. Yeah, and looking for thrift stores. I always try to find a thrift store when I'm traveling. So
yeah, yeah. It's nice, with the river cutting through. It's
mhm.
got a lot of hills, but it's not very far until you get to pretty flat area. So
Yeah,
farms everywhere.
yeah, for sure. That's Ohio for you,
Mhm.
just
Yep,
in general.
Savannah knows that well.
Mhm.
Yes, for sure. Small town girl. I do love the banks in Cincinnati too, like right by the stadium and stuff. I know that's probably like a pretty basic area, but I just think it's fun. We've gone to a few Bengals games and went
Mhm.
out there and stuff before, so it's
Yeah,
fun times.
it's nice
Yeah,
they've got that. Got a couple
yeah, for
different
sure.
pockets of areas. So fun city to live in. It's a great home base, and it's nice when you get to travel, and so when you get out to these other cities to be part of the user group, it's fun to get around. And I'm the same way. I like to try to go to local restaurants and
Mhm.
see concerts if I can, and local sporting events,
I'm always
etc.
peeping the concert. If when I see somebody's got a tour, I was like, let me see if they line up anywhere I might be traveling, because
Yep.
I'd love to. Like Hart, I was thinking, if you saw Hart is back out this year. The main singer has had cancer. She's in a wheelchair, but her voice is still solid as a rock. She's still singing her songs, and I was thinking that'd be fun to see, and so I was looking to see if anywhere it lined up. It might line up, yeah, in June. So I'm excited for that potential.
Yeah, so, I mean, so many little smaller local or smaller venues now that are starting to pop up, and so you're starting to see some of these bands that aren't like mega rock bands that aren't going to want to try to fill up an entire stadium that
Yeah.
have a lot more venue options. So I feel like a lot of people are on tour again that maybe you haven't seen in a while, and it makes it more accessible.
Yep,
So
going on their final tour again. Just
yeah,
it's like dang, I ran out of money again. I guess I have to have another final tour.
Yeah, oh no. Goodness, that's funny.
Savannah, did you get to
Um,
see Taylor Swift
no,
eras?
I did go to Cincinnati though when she was in town or whatever, because Caleb's brother lives in town, so I made them go out with me and stand outside the stadium to like listen to a few songs with me or whatever. And you can hear her like really well
I
actually.
would think
So
so. Yeah.
yeah, and there's a lot of girls dressed in sparkles outside, so it was just kind of fun to see like just the crowds of it all and like how many people came in just for that didn't even have tickets too. Like I was definitely not the only one standing outside by
You could
at
have got like
all.
VR glasses and just like had a VR, eras tour, like and just outside
Yeah, I
listening in
honestly
person,
could
feeling the
have.
vibes, but having the picture.
Yeah, that those glasses would probably be less expensive than the ticket. So
100%. You bet.
yeah, so no, maybe one of these days, who knows? But no big deal. But yeah, so Rick, in this podcast series so far, we've talked about like how to maintain relationships with your partners, what to look out for in a good partner, like the positive characteristics that partners can have. And today we're kind of here to talk about like red flags, essentially, that you should watch out for. Yeah, when looking for a partner. I know that sounds kind of harsh, but I mean, it is important to know like what to look for and then what to not look for, if that makes sense. So, just kind of leading into it, when choosing a partner, what can the cost be to kind of choose the wrong partner at first? I don't know if you've been in a situation where you've seen that happen, or Bobby, you too. I know you guys both have a lot of experience, but yeah.
yeah. I mean, the costs can kind of range across the board, and I think it's dependent on the situation, and there's so many different factors, but it can be really costly. So doing your research up front and just taking your time. That you see a lot of people in a rush to make a decision, or they want things to be simple and easy, and you can just get going and then find out mid-flight that you're in a world of hurt. So it really depends on how big your projects can be as well, and you can see it across the span of negatively impacted projects, poor architecture, licensing can be a big thing that can be a big cost factor. So yeah, and it's not always easy to identify. There's a lot of times where people sound good, or have a good explanation of the way they do things, but it can be smoke and mirrors sometimes. So, but you're right, it can be costly, and hopefully for most people they figure it out soon enough. But sometimes the damage is done, and then you got to figure out how to unwind things.
It's not
Yeah.
just dollars either. It's time costs, like you said. If you rush into a partner decision in a big project like an implementation, and you get 6 months in, 8 months in, and you're down the road, and you realize this thing's going off the rails, then you're in the mode of, well, we've gone too far. We can't roll it back. I would
Yep.
suggest maybe you do. Maybe you put the brakes on and just stop right there and reevaluate quickly. I mean, it's sometimes better than going the next 6 months and the next 6 months. And how many times have we seen people in 3-year projects that are just grinding, and they don't know why, and they just have lost control. So yeah, I think your point first is to take your time when you're choosing a partner. Or I'll be honest, even you just want to get into that and make sure it's, if your buddy's there, great, interview them, but also interview other people. Make sure this is a very impactful decision. It's not just you're not going out to buy a candy bar. It's $1 million multi-month project, multi-year project. That take your time and make sure you're really aligned with whoever you're choosing, because yeah, it can be difficult to rectify once you've gotten too deep in.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a number of ways to do that, and hopefully, what most folks are doing is they're spending the first part of the engagement doing real detailed requirements gathering and documentation, and not just starting it and figuring out as they go. And I think the latter is where a lot of people get in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
And you see even not just the time period of things getting delayed or the cost of redoing things, but you see a lot of fatigue with a lot of the end users that are expecting something or that have to continue to put in work around describing and customizations and those kinds of things, and then nothing gets delivered, and it can be problematic for the employee and the base and the morale of them as well. So there's more to just financial and time costs. There's certainly some things with morale and excitement of the project going stale, and frustration setting in, and even attrition.
Yeah. And I'd say also you being careful to make sure your partner's right size for you. I mean, it's so often you see, and you've seen, you get into a situation where maybe you've been presented with this big partner because they've got the flashy case studies or whatever they're out there, they're being showcased, but then you get in and you're not quite getting the attention because you're no longer the biggest fish. You're not quite but they're still going to take the business because it's business. So just think about right sizing. There's so many great partners like Ellipse Solutions that are out there. These boutique is a word I've heard, but just making sure you're right sized with the project, the partnership, and you're really comfortable with the folks that you've met and in that initial stage. So that's important.
Yeah, and I think it's important you understand what you're trying to do. I mean, if you're looking for a long-term partner, you want a lot of things to align. If you're looking for something very specific, maybe somebody's got a real niche functionality, and you're really just trying to focus on that, then make sure that they've got the ability to support that specific niche. But
the rest of it, having
if you're
all
looking,
the boxes you need ticked there in front of you, and not get lost and get wrapped up in this a quick whirlwind cycle of choice. Make sure you're measured about it and get that right fit.
Yeah, because a lot of times the smaller partners will have a specialty, like either whether it's a vertical or something like advanced warehousing, but once it gets beyond that, maybe they don't have as deep of an understanding. So,
right.
If that's really what you're focused on, maybe the partner you're using is good at everything else and doesn't have that. So it may be okay to supplement with that. But, if you're going into, a major project and it's a small firm, they may not always have all the resources to cover the level of depth at the areas that span across an entire ERP project. So sometimes you'll see as well folks that dabble in multiple ERP systems and they share resources, and it sounds like they've got a lot of people, but either they're spread thin or only a couple of them have expertise in a particular one. You see project managers shared a lot, things like that. So it depends what the role of the project manager is. Sometimes, that's someone that has technical functional knowledge, architectural knowledge of the solution, and sometimes it's just someone that's organizing calendars and the progress of the project. So, know what you're looking for, and make sure that they're able to support that. You'll see sometimes a partner doesn't have a good support program, and so if you've done a project and you don't have a partner now and you're looking for a new partner, maybe the best way to look for it is a support program partner that is able to manage your day-to-day needs in addition to future requirements. So
right, customizations, not just break fix, whatever stuff happening, but continuous updates and new customizations or things that come along that or new functionality that you're not sure how to use or whatever is coming down the pike.
Yeah, and I mean, there's just so many, as you talk about continuous updates, that whole process itself. But if you just take the process of automating that out and you just look at the specific updates that are coming in, I mean, it's a lot to be able to stay on top of that. There's, 700, 800 or more updates that come out per quarter. And, not all of those are going to apply to you, but you're going to need to know what those are and how to manage those.
Yeah.
Yeah, you bring up a lot of good points. I think one thing that you mentioned that I think is the first step when looking for a new partner is looking inward and like you said, creating that checklist and making sure that you know for yourself like what you want for your company, rather than just searching without knowing exactly like what industry maybe they might be experts in, if you need licensing, if, like, you know, having all of those things set out so that when you're on your search, you're able to fully see what they have versus what you need. So and one of the things that you brought up too is maybe some partners are too big for what you're needing, which kind of reminded me of one of my red flags that I had written down, was that some companies, their pricing might seem cheap, and that might seem nice, you know, less money, but that might be a red flag for some. Like, why are they so cheap? You know,
Yeah.
just making sure you're looking into that, because sometimes it seems too good to be true, and cheaper isn't always better. So, but yeah, that was one of my red flags that I had down. I don't know if you had any red flags that you guys thought of off the top of your head that you wanted to mention.
Well, I'll just elaborate on the one that you just mentioned. I think, why are they so cheap? I think a lot of times it can be they may have junior resources or resources that aren't experienced, or it may be the way that they use offshore resources, whether they're theirs or a subcontracted party. Sometimes they'll do that, and that can be a successful strategy to get good quality resources at a lower price, but sometimes it's just a strategy to get resources at a lower price. So I think making sure you understand what that model looks like, and what the additional resources look like. But yeah, and I think a good segue from there of other red flags related to cost is not necessarily the rate being lower, but the scope being narrow and short, and maybe not all inclusive. And let's just make it easy and get into this project, and then we'll tell them all the things or discover all the things that are really in it. So I think if when you see, if you're putting things out to bid and you talk to multiple partners, when you see items that don't have a lot of detail around them, that can be a red flag. Or when you see a cost that's way lower in a certain area, that can be a red flag. So I think it's important to dig into both of those and say, what do these 3 bullets mean, and why is there 200 hours for these 3 bullets? What is all entailed in these 3 bullets? Should this be 30 bullets, so that we can really agree to what's going to be done there? And or maybe there is some detail, but you're just like, this just feels like it should cost more or have more hours associated with it. Can you explain to me why it's not as heavy as we thought here? And is it on our side? Did we not define things well enough, or is it really just that simple? It may be, in fact, that it is that simple, but a lot of times if something's skewed, probably a good place to focus and ask more questions.
Yeah, you made me think about too the idea that one of the phrases, or a similar type phrase, if you hear something like, "Oh yeah, don't worry about that. We'll talk about it later," or "We'll get to it. Don't worry." Any if you've got something that's important and you're getting some dismissive kind of, to me, it's a flag. It's like, okay, but it just means maybe they don't have it under control, or truly it is something that's simple, but maybe just push and say, "I understand, but let's just tell me why it is simple real quick, so I'll have peace of mind and I can sleep tonight, because it's really important to me." And so I, just kind of, digging in, like I said, digging in a little bit more, especially on things you've identified as being very important. Making sure that if you're getting, to me, that's a number one red flag. If somebody's just quickly dismissive, or feels like they're not paying attention to your concerns, I'd be asking bigger questions, getting a little deeper, and forcing the conversation to happen in front of me, because I want to be comfortable. Again, it's not. We do this every day in life. I mean, you go out to the store, you're making decisions. You plan your grocery list. You add something to your house. You get a contractor. You're doing similar activities in different scopes. So just keep that in mind in all factions, that you control the process, and you want to get the best possible outcome. So don't skip on your preparation, and in the moment, don't get dissuaded from your plan to get the information you want.
Yeah, absolutely. Another area, I was going to say, Savannah, it looked like you were going to chime in. Did you have something else there, or
Nope.
were you going to ask
you.
about some other
She has a
areas?
pile of red flags in front of her. She's gonna keep throwing them out.
Yeah. I should have ordered some and just like holding them up this whole
You
time.
can put those in and post. Just have them dropping from above. Just red flag, red
Yeah.
flag, red flag, red flag.
Yeah. But no, Britt, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned it earlier. Licensing is an area where, you really got to look for red flags there. There's a number of things from a licensing perspective. Not every partner, and sometimes you see this more with the smaller partners, they're not a tier one or direct CSP, which means they can't sell you the licenses directly, which means they've got to subcontract another licensing partner and become a pass-through. So they're no longer managing your licenses directly or provisioning them or billing for them. So that could create some problems with the multi-layers there. There could be some markups, you never know there. But I think the other side of the equation around what could be a red flag is when people are sizing up your licenses, they use kind of broad brushes and just say, hey, we're going to give you the full access license. And it's easier that way. Well, that can cost you a lot more money. So
Yeah.
what you should be looking for is someone that hopefully can look more granularly at the different user types that you have and try to figure out ways to use lower tier licenses, because it can be a huge cost savings to shift down from a full supply chain or finance license down to an activity. The current price for supply chain and finance licenses are $210 per user per month, and an activity is $50 per user per month. So, that $160 savings across 36 months, times however many licenses adds up really quickly.
I'm hearing the ching sound effect being put in by Savannah right now. She marked that one.
Yeah.
Really loud.
Bobby, you're giving me all of the editing ideas. Thank you.
In moment, like in flight, we're just editing right now. Yeah.
Dollar
Yeah,
bills,
exactly.
Dollar bills floating around, all of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a dollar bill cartoon dancing beside Rick. Yeah, all of that
Yeah.
fun
I'm
stuff.
gonna
Dollar
put like
bill
the dollar
eyes.
bill glasses on all of us. Yeah.
Yeah. Didn't mention solution designations too. It used to be gold partner, silver partner. It's not a huge red flag. There's still people out there that are great partners that maybe just haven't, got kind of squared it away yet. But that is another thing to look at, to pay attention to, the solution designations.
Yeah, it is, and Microsoft continues to change those, and so a good sign that your partner is on top of their stuff is that they're keeping up with those. I think they make them really challenging, and sometimes if not enough partners keep up, they kind of back off of what they were planning to implement. But usually the partners that are most impacted are kind of the medium size or the smaller ones. Microsoft's not likely to take a very large tenured partner and start stripping things away from them at first pass.
Right.
So if folks are starting to slip outside of those certifications, it can be challenging for the smaller or mid-sized partners, but it also may mean that they're just don't have the resources to play in that space, and that could be a red flag. So
it feels like it's less of a red flag and more of a yellow flag. It's one
Yeah.
just something to know about. It's not. I wouldn't say, oh, you don't have a solutions designation. Well, I'm not going to use you. Or if you do, to your point before, you could be a large company and you've hit all your solution designations because you've got 700 people in your company, but maybe only 10 of them were certified, and so the other 690 aren't, and so
Yeah.
you end up getting one of the 690 that maybe is not in that certification pool. So just either way, it's just something to think about, less a complete red flag for my sake.
yeah, I like the yellow flag designation. I
The
think
yellow flag designation. We got more
You know,
flags for Savannah to figure out.
if you're, I think most people kind of intuitively score people in their mind. There's some justification to actually having a scorecard and to start listing out what's important to you, and maybe even putting some weight around certain things that are more important, and less weight around things that aren't quite as important to you. And when you find the yellow flags, maybe you ask some questions. Maybe there's a good reason for the yellow flags, or
Yeah.
maybe things that you thought might be a yellow flag is a strategic decision so that they can focus on other things. So
100%, Rick.
that's why
Ask the questions. Yeah, don't let me see a yellow flag, even a red flag. Hey, what if you had 3 green flags and 1 red flag? What is the weight on these? There's so many nuances to what we're talking about. It's not just, oh, I saw a red flag, I got to turn, because otherwise you're going to keep turning. There's always going to be something that pops up that's going to feel off. But if you don't ask the questions, just don't be afraid to do that too. Get back in and say, hey, we were looking at, what's going on with your solution designations, or what's going on with this thing. Just tell me a little bit more so I can hear from the person. You might learn a lot. You might even get more comfortable. Like, wow, they were super honest and they gave us great. And this is the kind of service we're going to get. Boom. I'm down with that. That's the kind of, those are my people. So I think you learn a lot by, again, being engaged and not being afraid to push and pull and ask questions when you need to.
Here's a good one for you. Riddle me this, Batman. It can be a red flag to see all green flags. So, if everything seems like it's checking out, and that's great. If you find a partner that checks all your boxes, that's fantastic. But, sometimes there is, the concern of too good to be true. So, like you said earlier, it's important to ask the questions about the green flags too.
Yeah.
Because what sounds like a green might not really be green.
I had a contractor come out and do some work, and at the end, they did a decent job. It was a solid job. And they said, if you don't mind, give us a rating. So I went up and gave him a rating like 4.7. The dude who did the job left some mess. He was in the ceiling and got the stuff on the ground. So it was some mess, and it wasn't perfect. It was good though. And he's like, what can I do to get a 5.0? I was like, I don't know. It is what it is. It's a good rating. He was just so out of it. So the point you're making is that this guy was trying his best to manufacture 5-star ratings when maybe they weren't 5-star results. And so, yeah, I much prefer seeing something where you get a 3-star and the owner steps in and says, Rick, what happened? I didn't realize, let me rectify this for you. And then you learn a lot about that company. They had a bad experience because not everybody's perfect. Nothing ever goes perfectly. But when something goes awry, they're stepping in and you're seeing, oh, here's, the owner stepping in, Rick going, oh, let me fix this for you. And boom, now you say, okay, something started to get off track, but Rick came in and fixed it. And we're moving along. That says a lot. So I agree with you. If it's 5 stars, that can't be true. There's no way. There's got to be always something that's going to be not perfect for somebody, but it's a matter of how you react to it.
For sure. I think that leads us into our next segue a little bit as to how to avoid these flags. I know we mentioned doing your research, asking all the questions, things like that, but do you guys have a more in-depth example of how to go about doing that?
Yeah, I mean, I think be comprehensive. I think what I've seen a lot and have heard about a lot is usually when the red flags are missed, it's because people rushed in or they wanted things to be easy and simple and let's just go. And usually that's where a lot of the problems start is you just didn't do your due diligence. And, it's just like anything. If you cut corners, it's going to cost you at some point. So, I think the best way is to do your work up front, do your homework, have deeper conversations, compare between what you had, in either writing or in conversation or a proposal with each of the different folks, and leave some stages in your evaluation period if you're choosing to go back after some of the proposals. Don't just go disappear and make a decision. Take that chance to figure out what's different and why is it different and what's missing. And, you can really start to learn some things from dissecting the differences between, the apples to oranges comparisons as it usually ends up. So, make sure you get as much information as you can and don't rush it. You spend your time doing your due diligence, go back and forth, have multiple sets of conversations after, most people think it's decision time. That's when maybe you can really start poking holes and getting the most detailed information.
Yeah, I say partners probably don't want to hear that because they're hoping that people you meet Rick and just after 2 minutes, yes, sign on with Rick. But I think you're right. I think that to me, the exact thing I thought of was just slow it down. It's one of these things that works well in again, lots of situations. You got a scam phone call. You think it's your son calling you from jail. Slow down. Think about it. Don't rush into sending the $1,000 to the lawyer. you've got a partner. Maybe you're starting to hit it off, but slow down. Make sure you're not jumping into this, like you said, this trap of trying to make a quick decision in such a again impactful scenario like an implementation. Again, we're talking major dollars, major time investment, major impact on your organization. It can go wrong, and it can go wrong badly. So you don't want to rush into the decision. So I don't have a different one other than the things we talked about, but emphasizing what Rick said again, that just, making that choice to slow down and do the diligence ahead of time and in the moment is so important.
Yeah, and I think you hit on something, hey, we like Rick, we're going to sign up. I think, so many times people get, during their engagement, they only get introduced to a couple of people, right? And a lot of times they're not even on the project side. They're on the sales or pre-sales side.
Right.
And, some organizations, the pre-sales team are people that are doing projects and implementations, and others have a separate pre-sales team. And sometimes you may not even talk to pre-sales. You may just be talking to a salesperson. So ask questions, ask if you can get sample resumes or talk to specific resources that you may be working with directly. Go a layer deeper. Find out more about the organization and the people in it than just the couple of people that are involved in the selection process.
And I would say this is just something to avoid. It's not really a flag, but just kind of thought about it as we've been conversing. You said 20 years. I've been in this industry for 20 plus years as well, on lots of different, roles on the end user side, partner side, community side. And yeah, there's so many great partners, large to small to medium size. And if I were doing this, I would invite a good cross section. Don't just get sucked into all the high levels or all the, make sure you interview, a good, large partner, a medium sized partner, maybe somebody just starting up, just if for nothing else than to get practice doing it. But also again, you're going to get a broader cross section of probably, good partners to talk to. So I would suggest you do that too. Just make sure you're varied as you're going through that partner selection, that you're not just stuck in some, one bucket somehow.
Yeah, and
a lot of great mid-sized partners out there. I mean, tons, that you just don't hear about because you kind of get flashed by the top ones.
Yeah, and I think, it's important to understand the tenure of the folks that have not only been in the channel, but at that particular company. It's, quality Dynamics resources are in high demand. Mm-hmm. And, a lot of times you can get these job hoppers, and if you get, a number of these folks in one organization, there's a good chance that the people you're talking to today aren't going to be the people you're talking to tomorrow. So maybe do a little sneak attack research on LinkedIn and find some of the folks that have been at the company and find out how long they've been there.
Yeah.
If they've been at company after company after company, 9 months, 18 months, 9 months, 6 months, and you start to see patterns, that may be a red flag as well. So
yeah,
just, understand the resource makeup and who's there, why they're there, how long they've been there, how long they plan to be there. Although, that's not always a question that people are going to answer or
you don't know. But like you said, if I met with you and you said, hey, Dave's going to be your project manager, and I look at Dave's LinkedIn and I see Dave is changing jobs every 3 months, it's like, yeah, I better get my project going because Dave's going to be on to his next opportunity in 3 months, because that's where Dave's head is. So that's a good, like you said, little sneak attack, little stalk attack on socials to see what some of the resources you're being offered, or even some of the resources in the company, how long they've been tenured, is interesting.
And it's another reason why the user group community is so important, because if you're there and you're around and you try to be at the conferences and you try to be at the local chapter meetings and the regional chapter meetings, you can start to get a feel for who's who, and who bounces around and who's sticking to the partners, and which partners are in and out or which partners are always there. You can start to get a feel for who really values their reputation in the community. And, those are the folks that typically are going to be the ones you want to...
You're building up that foundational trust before, so you're almost doing the homework ahead of time. So if you're getting ready for an implementation, or even if you're not, you're just there. But if you have seen Rick at every event and you get to know him, then all of a sudden that next level conversation, you've probably already been exposed to some other folks at his organization, or other folks in the channel, like you said, that are speaking, giving sessions at the events. And so you kind of already have these relationships built up. So I love that ad, Rick, and that community is so important, just to start a little bit of a foundation. So you're not starting from scratch like, oh, I don't know any of these people. It's like, no, I kind of know Rick. I know this person. I know that person. And now it's kind of easier to get, moving forward.
Well, and sometimes you know who to stay away from as well, not just who to cling to. So
Yeah, true. Yeah. Goes both ways. That's the red and green flags.
There you go. Yeah. Some people are yellow, indifferent, whatever.
Some people are in the middle.
Yeah. Oh gosh. One last thing I did want to bring up, because I think what you mentioned, Rick, with being able to like just check through people's LinkedIn profiles and things like that, I think that's a good, simple, like easy research tactic to use too. And one other thing that I think could be used for like good research is asking that partner if they have any case studies or things like that of stories that they've done with other companies and things like that. And that kind of leads back to even Bobby's 5-star review kind of deal. I don't think there's any site where you can leave any partners, like rate them out of 5 or whatever, but I feel like case studies are a good place to find like how they work with other companies, and then maybe you can even see what companies they are working with and things like that. And I think that could be considered a green flag if that company does have case studies that they can offer for you to read through and things like that as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I agree.
yeah, and I it's another area where more detail is better. You don't always even need to talk to all the referenceable clients, but talk to the company and ask them who they've got that's a fit, because you may think that your industry or the company just like me is the fit, but you could take 2 of the same companies, similar companies from the same industry, put them on opposite sides of the street and tell them to go, and they may implement completely differently.
Yeah.
So and some of that may be certain things in their business processes. It may be who implemented them. It may be the level of expertise of their subject matter experts. There's a number of things. So there's a number of different things that, the case studies that apply could be vastly different. And it may not just be the company that's in your industry. It may be there's a certain process that they do, or they do these 3 things and not the 4th, and someone else does these 3 things and not the 4th, but they're in a different industry. So, spend some time digging into what they consider to be a similar case study, and don't always rely on your own opinion of what a similar case study might be.
Yeah, good one.
Sure. Cool. Well, is there anything else as we're wrapping up that you guys wanted to touch on before we kind of lead into our closing thoughts here?
No, I think
we kind of
Rick
touched
covered it
on
pretty well.
everything.
Yeah, a lot of good information there on just kind of staying alert and attentive and intentionally in the project as you're leading into that decision-making process.
Well, this is the Buddy Podcast, right? So,
It is.
I think Savannah and I have been buddies for a long time. Bobby and I have been buddies for a long time, and my name's Ricky, and Bobby's name's Bobby. So,
Give me a side bump somehow. Can we make that happen on the camera? Boom, boom, boom. Yeah.
It's right on your screen, but I'm in the middle of you guys.
I said,
on
we're
mine.
punching Savannah. It doesn't look as good.
Yeah.
I'm seeing her face.
Well, I just always like the phrase, if you ain't first, you're last. And
Yeah.
if you ain't successful, you're unsuccessful. So, just eliminate as many red flags as you can and put yourself in the best chance for success. And, hopefully the fewer red flags, the better. And the more you can identify earlier, the better.
Right, because you want to get to that checkered flag. That's the end goal. You want to get there safely and soundly. And we have been talking about buddies, and that's our thing has been kind of reflecting on who are if you had to pick a buddy out there in the world, the cultural fictional world, who would it be? And there's so many. It's fun because there's endless possibilities that you have to repeat. But it seemed apropos, like you said, to be Cal Weaver and Ricky Bobby. So they're consummate. They have some friction in the middle, but they're at heart. They're looking out for each other. So.
Yep. Sometimes you need that partner that's got all the resources and they can shake and bake.
Yep. Shake and bake, baby.
Can't always do it alone.
I love all these references. I feel like that's a perfect place to lead off on. I feel like I shouldn't interrupt any of that. I love it. So, well, yeah, Rick, thanks for joining us again. You shared some great insights, and I'm excited to share this with our network and everybody. And one last thing I did want to touch on too is since this is the last episode in this partner series, we do have a guide to Microsoft partners that I'll share the link on our socials and where this is posted and everything. So if anyone's listening and wants to see that, it's kind of like a comprehensive guide of kind of everything Bobby and I have talked throughout the series. So yeah, just look out for that for those listening, like I said. But cool. Well, once again, thanks, Rick and Bobby. I'll talk to you later. Jake and Mike.
Thanks for having me,
We're going to be
guys.
talking. Yeah, we're going to do our own podcast with nobody else, just us buddies to talk about things. So we got that coming up.
Yeah, something to look forward to.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you, guys.
Yep, Rick, good seeing you, man. Savannah, happy as always to see you too.
Yeah, me too. Bye, guys.